The Good Dudes Grow 2.0.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Good Dudes Grow 2.0. So, listen, what I like to do on my podcast, interview different people from celebrities to athletes, but I really like to do, especially in this sector, is talk to fellow firefighters from different departments and see their input, what they have to say about our relationship with, or not relationship with CBD and cannabis, whether it's good, whether it's bad. I like to bring all types of different opinions on. So I am extremely excited to have Matthew Ericson with me. We've gone back and forth on some emails and some different things that he was working on when he was with the fire service and I'm working on now. So Matt, thank you for coming to the show. Give us just a little bit of your background on who you are and what you're doing now and what you're up to.
Gary, brother, thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed our conversations as well, and I'm excited to get to know more about you and what you're doing in the space. I have 15 years on as a firefighter medic, and some of that in the officers seat. 15 years in Space Coast Fire Department, smaller department, about 3,000 calls a year, and 12 of those years was union work and on the pension board, and steward and upward into chair and president in those other seats. So it was really fun, had some great mentorship. We learned a lot, and really were able to build great relationships with elected officials and work with management in a productive way. So we're able to change the city and change the environment of the department over the course of our time there, and just had a great team and surrounded by amazing people. So had a great time with it. Yeah.
That's great. The reason why I wanted to come you on, and we went back and forth, you started talking about CBD and cannabis before it was actually legal in Florida. And basically you were trying to bring in your own, input into the union. And that's what I wanted to get in touch with you. Someone who was actually in union kind of positions, and they deal with management, and give a different perspective on what management thinks, what union thinks, so that other firefighters who are listening to the show kind of get an idea of what I'm trying to do and what's going on behind the scenes. Because, a lot of firefighters, they're up with their union, but they don't know what they're doing. And every time you guys do something and you do something wrong, they blame you, or you do something right, they're excited. They really don't understand all the stuff that's going in the back. So, and on this subject, like I tell everybody, it is a big play on words. It's I hate to use the term game, but it's such a touchy subject. We don't want to go too far left, too far right. So how did you come into basically learning more about medical cannabis and CBD and stuff? Just start there.
Sure. Yeah, I think I've always been an advocate for cannabis and responsible cannabis use. And interestingly enough, you'd be surprised that I think there's just a social awakening. There's an awakening of social consciousness to where people understand that some of the maybe propaganda from 70s and 80s and war on drugs is disintegrating a little bit over time. So I think not everyone, because it's a subjective world and everyone has a different take on what's right and wrong. But I think that it brings a tremendous amount of health and medical benefit to any field that has high intensity, low drag, to where they're seeing and having and experiencing like psychological traumas. So whether that's ER docs or it's police officers, firefighters. So I'm excited that how things have progressed in Florida over the years, and along the way, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, it seems like there's traction in a lot of departments all around the state. We would talk about it at IAFF and FPF meetings, on the sidelines, and talk about what's happening aggregate in the state. And our department ended up having some conflicting language that seemed to be supportive of medical cannabis use. And this is going back a few years, even as flower was still, illegal, and they were still pushed out and marginalized. And so it's great to see those barriers breaking down, not only for access, but that it's not as taboo a subject as it used to be several years ago. And So in any event, I ended up getting a lot of folks from around the state, brothers and sisters, in all kinds of different situations, dozens and dozens of calls over the last few years. And you'd be surprised, they all have similar stories to where there's a broken family situation, or there's an addiction, or there's a brother or sister dealing with cancer, or other various ailments, to where cannabis is a legitimate option. And it is still difficult to get through these different barriers, like your talks, not only psychological barriers, but there's bureaucratic layers as well. All that being said, is that there was a surprising number of cities, municipal and counties, that were that there was a majority of council that was in favor. Medical director was in favor. Chiefs were on board, and it seemed like the stopgap that everyone was hitting. And again, this is 2 years ago plus, so things may have changed quite a bit.
I'm going to stop you there before you go on.
Sure.
So while everybody's listening to this, so just so you'll understand, I don't want anybody who's listening, and especially because I know I got some chiefs who listen to all that. This is more of, we're talking about opinion in certain things going on. We're not talking, this is the way it should be. It shouldn't be done. We're just giving our current experiences and opinions of what's going on and how we see the verbiage and how we felt was going on. Correct?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not speaking for every chief. I'm not speaking for every firefighter. I'm not speaking for every municipality or county by any stretch. But I received a few dozen phone calls over the course of the years, all from different municipalities, and I can tell you that they were at different levels of acceptance. So where there's an understanding that this is a different route of treatment than a synthetic, and a potentially better one. So it seemed like some of the hang up there in the later stages is Florida League of Cities. There's a threat of, that these municipalities and counties will end up losing their block grant access, their federal grant money. So, hey, buddy, thanks. So sorry.
Right.
And so that it seemed like that kind of put the brakes on a lot of things. So naturally, there's all of these individual issues, right? So there's a firefighter with GI cancer, needs to eat, wants to use cannabis. There's marital issues, and there's EAP and therapeutic issues, and you get into synthetic, mental therapeutic drugs, and there's consequences to those too, that are significant. So it seems like this is the most beneficial in some circumstances, and likely the most benign. So considering how many loopholes there is in the current drug testing, schema, it doesn't make sense that this thing, and I should say, the biggest holdup is that it's a constitutional right for you to use this medicine as a Floridian. That's it. If you're a resident of the state of Florida, it's your constitutional right to be able to use cannabis, and it's not appropriate for the FDA to be reaching into state affairs. So I know that some people are challenged with some of that, but this is where it goes: is it has to go to state Supreme Court, and then it goes to Supreme Court to decide who does or does not have power, and in what way, whether it's through a medical director, or if it is the FDA withholding grants, and there's this different form of, manipulation or coercion there. So regrettably, instead of it being, it's a difficult pitch, and the optics are challenging. So to be really fair is that some of the public trust, it seems, and I think that leaders all over the state are concerned about this, is that we might lose some form of public trust, in the traditional sense. And that's a legitimate concern, because some of the constituency is, Reagan era, so,
Right.
And same with my parents. And so another thing I'm passionate about. And so I have fire service on, both of my dad and stepmom firefighters, both of my grandfathers, police officers. So, I know the whole spectrum gamut of opinions, and I think the biggest win in this season is just being able to talk about it, because it's still taboo, not only on a corporate level, but on an individual level. Is there's these psychological traumas that come with the job that they eat away at you slowly, and nobody really wants to talk about it. Everyone's salty at the end of their career, and it's actually your sympathetic nervous system is fried. Our hormone cycles are fried. So,
Yeah, exactly. I tell
yeah,
everybody the same thing. When I go on different podcasts and they ask me, can you give us a little kind of like an idea of what it's like and why you so passionate about this? I says, well, people ask me all the time, how can you deal with mangled bodies and car accidents and stuff like this? And the normal action I give us, I'm like an auto mechanic. I see a broken car and I fix it. And what I'm really saying is that after so many years, like 15 years of you, 17 mine, we suppress those feelings that other people have. So when you have your family member, you're not in the industry like we are, and if something hurts them, you freak out. You're worried, or even us, like our own family, we freak out. We're worried. But when it's somebody else's family, we suppress, like you said, that fight or flight system. We suppress that all the way down to where there's no feelings whatsoever, and it just becomes a mechanical job. After 30 years, you're going to be 20, 30 years, you're going to be salty because you've been suppressing your feelings for so long. Hence the reason why, like you said, there's addiction, there's alcoholism, there's high levels of suicide. Divorce in the fire industry is through the roof. Well, you can't love somebody else if you suppress your feelings for so long. So stuff like cannabis and CBD, which can help, is something that I think I had when I went to my superiors and everything else. It wasn't the fact they understood, thanks to you and your help and the documentation you provided and us talking, they understood that they won't lose the federal grant money. It always became down to
right.
one simple question. How do we not get sued? Because we can't figure out if you're impaired or not. And it all comes down to that.
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
think?
it's fit for duty tests. Yeah. Well,
Exactly.
I mean, we just get into the normal, the way the system works for, urine sampling is there's a panel. It doesn't include all drugs by a long shot, nor should it. And, some of the drugs that are on there are amphetamines and benzos and opiates. And, but, the secret is that, most of us take Benadryl all the time to sleep, because we don't sleep well anymore. It's difficult to get hours of REM, and that's because of this weird conditioning. And so there's a myriad of things that are happening, psychological traumas from the things that we see, which, everybody's life is a subjective reality, right? So you have to kind of start from that first principles. And so I can never understand what it's like for a military personnel to see his buddy's brains blow out, or hers. And just like an office person is not going to understand, the things that we see in the street with, mangled bodies and dead kids. And that's really intense stuff. And most people, the vast majority of the people, they only experience that brush with real trauma that kind of shakes your entire perspective a handful of times in life when they confront death or, the threat of death directly, or when it's their immediate family members or something that is a critical injury or things like that. And in those moments, you have this clarity on what's actually valuable in life, and it's usually not like, how's our money doing? It's like, what did I do with the time? And so, so it's interesting. So to keep that in mind, that, some people just are not going to understand, but to try and make it relatable, it's not normal to, to see these things. It's not, it changes you. And it is a silent killer. It's a very stealthy thing that happens. And what ends up happening, I think, in that space is you become desensitized. You become very cynical of life in general, because you're so frequently viewing injustice and good families getting hurt, and it seems like sometimes bad people live longer, and there's just a lot of really bad scenes. And without getting into examples, we could do Firehouse Talk too. Most people don't want to hear that for more than 5 or 10 minutes,
No.
and us actually sitting around the table talking about it at dinner or making morbid jokes about it, that is how we process it. There's this profound, it's a near universal phenomenon when it takes a couple of days to unwind, even if you go on vacation, right? any firefighter almost takes 3, 4, 5 days a week before, oh, I actually slept decent that night, or I'm not, like, and what that is that we are conditioned to be in a constant state of awareness, right? So you're always on, so you're like anticipating, there's this anticipatory, posturing of your life around when's this thing going to drop. And then the adrenaline drops again. So it's really weird being removed from it now, because it takes for me, it took me 3 months to be able to sleep with some normalcy again. After I was done, after I retired early, it was just a decision. I got an interesting story, but it was a good decision. We had unique circumstances that allowed us to just completely radically change our life, and that's what we did. And so I did. I left the service a bit early, but it was healthier for me and for us and for our family. And so I get to say, on the other side of that, it took me about a month or so to feel like, if you can imagine a frequency like an EQ, you visualize on our audio, DAWs and stuff. So like everybody's frequency, firefighters' frequency are elevated more over time, right? Because that's where we're just like a little bit more mood disorder, we're a little jumpy, or or maybe really laid back and depressively so sometimes. There's all this whole spectrum of that. Everyone is like their own individual portrait, how they're, affected in this different way. So to have that frequency come down over time took me about 3 months to start sleeping normally through the night, and took about a year to fully, to feel the spring decompress and unwind fully. And it's like, oh, there's a little bit more levity, to life. And so we decided to move into an area with a lot of forests and mountains and stuff. So that helped a lot too, just being away from people and being alone and spending some time, decompressing. And that's the thing, is like, immediately, I know I'm going to get kicked back from this. Like, oh, you're so, it's so soft and stuff. But hey, this is, 75, 80% plus of the fire service is dealing with this stuff. And we don't know how to talk about it. So the truth is that they should be talking about it in fire school. And it's like a continuity of a thematic, driver of our career progression. It should be baked into this. What just my thoughts on the other side of everything, is like, all right, well, it's so scary to talk about, and then you don't even want to confront it yourself. Like, do you deal with this issue or whatever, EAP, or is this helpful, or is it ridiculous, and all of what goes into that. So I know I'm taking up a lot of space here, but I'm very passionate about this. Like, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about it, and there should be built-in sabbaticals. Like military get, a month or two here and there every couple of years. And, CISD right afterwards, a heavy event is not enough, because some of these things, they manifest weeks or months over time, or there's weird recurring thoughts or nightmares. There's all kinds of weird stuff that happens in that space. It's different for everybody. Right. So to say, all right, let's powwow and talk about it as a group, that's great. And that's now there's at least some sort of spotlight on there's an issue there. But, we sweep it under the rug socially, culturally.
Right.
I always have. Shell shock in the 50s. They did the same thing with the military, It's like,
Exactly. And I agree with you. And I tell everybody else, and the stories I keep telling people, and I want them to understand it, is that PTSD and stuff like that is synonymous with the military, because they see all this graphic stuff. And again, here's the projection I want everybody who's listening to understand. When you watch a war movie, you see war movie, or you're on TV, you see all hell breaking loose, shit blowing up, people blowing up. So when you sign up for the military, basically, chances are I'm going to see that. Now watch a firefighter movie and a firefighter TV show, and I guarantee you will not see people blowing up, people losing limbs. You will see them basically come out of fires with little black soot on them. Everybody's fine. Even the patients are fine. That's not reality. And they never told you that when you signed up for the fire service, that when you drag that person out of the fire, his skin will be on your gear. It'll stay to your gloves. You'll smell it for days. It's not like the movies. Imagine, transfer what you see in the war aspect of it and put it into the fire aspect. And that's basically what you're going to basically see for guaranteed almost for 20 years. You will see that. the military,
Yeah.
you got 4 year stints and then you can continue. And chances are, if there's no wars around, you'll never see anything. But a firefighter in any city, volunteer, anything else, is pretty much guaranteed to see several, if not multiple, gruesome things per shift throughout their 20-year career. And nobody told you that when you signed up. Everybody told you, even told I, you're the superhero, you're good. Everybody loves you, you're great. Police officers don't like you because they like firefighters. All this weird stuff. And all of a sudden you get 15 years of, oh my God, dead kids, broken arms, mayhem, death.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this stuff's shooting. And then you just have to suppress all that and go, what in the hell's going on? And then somehow, like you said, come out of it after 20 some odd years and just jump into normal life like nothing happened for the last 20 years.
Sure.
It blows people's mind when I tell them that stuff.
Yeah, the injury. I think it's important to make a differentiation between us and military and other folks. Like a flight medic sees it every shift,
Right.
So it is a matter of intensity and frequency, right? So if you're, our intensity, the heaviness of the call may not be as vivid or as relationally complex as seeing your buddies get blown up, or your platoon wiped out, or, that is a different world. That is very, very similar to seeing my firefighter buddy die, but that frequency, if you think about it like in a spike, like that's really heavy, but maybe in the course of war, there's quite a lot of that, or maybe only small compartmentalized amounts. Versus and sabbaticals and everyone has a different career too, so I want to be really respectful of this world. And same with firefighters and EMS personnel everywhere. You can be on the busiest box for 20-30 years, and that's a different career than a lightweight department and stuff. So we can all think of those stations that come to mind there, but the point is that instead of that high frequency high intensity mark there, I would say that over time, we probably have a bit more of frequency, not as high intensity.
Right.
And so it does. And even the simple calls, you end up, grandma has a stroke and it's a bread and butter call, but it's still someone's grandma. And I think you grow this callousness around it to where, you don't think about it anymore. But it does, you don't have a choice. It actually buries in your subconscious a little bit, So being able to unpack that stuff in healthy ways through cannabis and other means, I think is really valuable. And I think that it would be the potential for a renaissance if it were ever embraced. I really think that it would revolutionize people's life, and as a micro study to see divorce rates and actually how much money it would likely save departments nationwide. And that's really what it will come down to. It's always about money. So, I think it's incremental wins, but I think departments and cities, counties are going to realize over time that this is very real. And instead of doing all of these synthetic drugs and you create, there's different implications and problems that can manifest from using synthetic drugs as well. And that's a good way to tie it up too, is that they do the same thing for military and fire. You're going to get Lexapro so that your serotonin is dumping freely, so that you feel joyful and happy and maybe not very motivated. And then they're going to give you Xanax to forget because it has that amnesic effect. So that's it. It kind of zombifies you going the synthetic way. So I don't want to discourage people from doing that. I did it, so I don't mind sharing some of my story. But there's a whole different world outside of synthetics that I think that are much more valuable, and should really be given a good test out and, just study it.
Right.
Study it. I think it'd be very valuable to save everybody money, and you'll save lives. You'll save lives, and it'll correct some of the injustices that we see with our brothers and sisters that are sick. There's a definitive medicine there, and it's being marginalized to the side, and it's BS.
Right. I'd like to applaud my department, because what they did, they started to do a couple of years ago was I don't know if you know about Life Scan, where they do a full body scan. They do So they brought this on, and they physically trying to catch illnesses or cancers before they have. So they're being proactive on the physical side. Which the cool thing is, I'm working with some partners up in Canada, and Canada is actually doing the same thing, but they're going on the mental side. So in other words, they're bringing in some mental training. So like if we did our life scan, think about this, and this is just me talking about off the top of my head and your idea and shooting the crap with you. But if we did a life scan where we scan our whole body, we do all that, everything's stressed, why at the same time don't we have a mental sit down with somebody at the same time and check to see if our mind's good and slowly build that? Because everybody wasn't into the life scan before. They're like, oh yeah, I don't want to do this. I'm going to find this crap. I don't want to find out. Now everybody's into it because they're finding stuff and they're saving their lives. It could start out the same way with that, but do it the mental aspect. Let's scan our own brains. Let's have that one talk with that therapist, or maybe like we see coming down the road with therapeutics of that one session. They have your therapist with the with MDMA or a psilocybin thing to open up and let you speak. It's something that we need to think about as coming down the pipeline, especially even right now that cannabis and CBD is legal basically in the state of Florida. That relaxes you, and you know, we're ready to talk. We're joyful. It's not like going out to have 6 beers where we end up, you know, wanting to fight everybody. You take a little gummy of CBD. You're not in the mood to go beat somebody up. You're in the mood to just sit down, chill, let's talk. You know, that's just mine.
Yeah.
Me talking.
I agree completely. I've talked to a chief and another officer in the last 2 days about the same thing, and we were talking about. So in our department, I have to applaud our city. They were very progressive and early adopting LifeScan. Awesome people, awesome company. Can't recommend them enough. They will catch a lot of things for your members. Just be ready. If you haven't done it before, be ready that there's going to be a lot of members that need follow-ups and stuff. So have a plan in place to catch that, and don't go in there gung-ho ready to put everybody on light duty, and that could be a problem.
Right.
But LifeScan is phenomenal because it legitimately saves lives. And to your point, it saves the city, a lot of money over time, a lot. So you're right. If we start catching these, the silent injuries, and they, the thing that's happening there is you're getting damaged. You're getting damaged, and it manifests in weird ways slowly over time, and then behaviors manifest on the other side of whatever those traumas look like. So, but I was saying the same thing. What if we just did like a life scan? They did another thing in our department, which was a co-opted medical clinic. I don't know if you guys do a co-op
we have
clinic.
one. Yeah.
The way to go. I mean, that should be a business maneuver for public and private entities alike, because just phenomenal care. It's a one-stop shop. It works out great. But yeah, you're right. Why not tie it in the exact same way? It's the same model. Or have someone come by the station. You can do one-on-one. You have access to marital, and it's not EAP, and there's not this big process, and then the city's able to look through every file of EAP. I know it's not as quite as open as that, but there's a lot that is that's not private there either, and it probably should be, but we were talking about if you have the therapist come in once a year and you talk about, all right, what was heavy this year? Tell me about this call. Yeah, this thing keeps popping up, kind of look like my kid, kind of look like my dad, when his brain was splattered over here and on my boot.
Right.
People don't realize that, the magnitude of that, and without grossing people out, like that's it, and there'll be, a dead kiddo, or, and then another kiddo who tries to take their life and doesn't succeed. There's parents that drop out on Easter and Christmas, and like, it's just really, really heavy stuff. And then all of the nighttime activities is another world that people aren't prepared to hear about either. So I'll stop there. But, if in order to gain your sabbatical, let's say you get 1 week per year as you do your therapy every 6 months, go in and talk for a couple. They do a little quiz thing on you. Are you having trouble sleeping? What does that look like? How often are you taking Benadryl? All right, what's going on with alcohol? Because again, folks, like I don't want to paint our brothers and sisters in a bad light at all. That's not my intention. But everybody is dealing with different levels of pain and traumatization. That is, you don't even realize it because you don't want to break through your own you like kind of build your own subconscious reality to say like I'm not a beta. I'm not
Right.
going to beta into that stuff. But it's too late when your family life is falling apart, you know,
Right. Yeah.
and the kids are in the mix, or hey, the bottle is a little more often than it's been. So just to be real and call everybody out on it, and that's the thing, is you can go to the doctor and get your sleeping aids and your benzos and be all gorked out on opiates. All kinds of opiates are a little different now, but there's a lot of loopholes there to where you can you can mask stimulants if if you take a stimulant. So why are we disallowing this medicine that is a constitutional right?
Exactly.
That's really what it comes down to. So it will go to through the legal routes, and unfortunately, instead of it being a gung ho political movement, the optics, I think, dissuade a lot of that, or some pieces of that, I should say. But it doesn't stop the momentum that's behind the movement. And I agree with you. It's like I think that if we accepted not only cannabis, and you see it all over the nation, and you see it even with psychedelics too. And I agree completely. Is that I think that in the right setting and conditions, that you could have 10 years of compressed psychotherapy in an
Right.
afternoon.
And,
And it really frees you. Yeah.
and on that note, and this is what I want a lot of people to understand, because one of the biggest misconceptions is basically once we start talking about psychedelics and cannabis, like a lot of viewers who are, like you said, in the Reagan eras, see that as
Oh yeah, I know.
as party drugs, as all these guys just want. I've seen them; they out party, they're drinking all the time. They just want to smoke weed, take psychedelics, and just get all gorked out of their mind. But in your experience, I know, because I know in mine, talking to fellow firefighters, chiefs, and union members, that really is not the reason why we're pushing this. I've been told several times they don't want to just smoke to get all gork. They actually are trying to look for something different from, like you said, the benzos and other stuff that they're taking. They want something more natural that'll make them feel better, but don't give them the side effects that they're taking. Do you find that the same
Sure.
when you talk with other fellow brothers and
Yeah,
sisters?
I mean, a lot of firefighters take long vacations. You know, we take a long vacation, and you're able to use cannabis, and you sleep well. And instead of your mind being, busy and stimulated and over the top, it's like it forces you to not. It slows your subconscious down. So that's that higher elevated frequency, your sympathetic, because all it is a feedback loop of hormone dumps, right, between your serotonin and dopamine.
Right.
So your pituitary is always doing this different stuff. And there's really interesting things that happen there, because as our as our sympathetic is dumping, it's free radical release, right? So it literally is killing us slowly. So it's not a play on words, that it slowly kills you and shortens your telomeres on the cellular level, and you die over time. It's over due to stress. So to be able to, with a medicine, to where a lot of synthetics try to mimic something that is a organic, homeopathic, out of the ground, should be abundantly shared and readily available medicine, that's been years used for ages, for eons, both all spiritually healing plants. But I would not only for sleeping and to be able to unpack stress, and it be an on and off thing, you titrate to what you need. To take a capsule now, I mean, you're taking a capsule anyways.
Right.
So what's the difference between a CBD oil capsule? So let's just be, is it apples to apples or not? So what all of it is about is breaking through this leftover propaganda. And so if you go to the history of that, which is really valuable, is that it was psychedelics and cannabis were being widely used in clinical settings, just like they are now, with the psychiatric in clinical settings. So I would say I don't know the National Psychiatric Organization. I probably should know that one, but like it was being adopted, right? It was being adopted. There was saturation in those fields with studies with very promising results, and then the war on drugs, and it was to muzzle that and the hippie movement and any sort of dissension from the state. So, that's where we're at, and I grew up with it too, so I understand it full well. But the thing that, and I started with experience, because it's important that people do have the opportunity to experience or try for themselves, because you can't be removed from an experience. You can talk about it, and it's where, my subjective reality versus I'm not willing to listen to your story.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why it's so important. I'm telling you a story. It's important for people to be able to have the opportunity to try for themselves, for an experience to see, and it's not for everyone. I have family members, my spouse included, that cannabis is not for her. Like, she feels like she's on a roller coaster and it's not good. So she's a lot more laid back than I am. Her hormone flows are different than mine, and I have other family members that are the same way. So some people run hot, some people are more laid back, all of that are these weird hormonal cycles. Another, field of study that we don't barely know anything about and don't look into, that they're highly connected, so anyhow.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt,
Yeah, I
man.
agree with you completely, man. We got to, yeah. What you're doing is the step, is not being afraid to speak up and do it publicly. Brother, I appreciate you so much that you're being brave in that space, because I know that there is pushback, and there is a psychological pushback too, probably from people that you work with and friends and family also.
You know what the cool thing about it is that 3 years ago, when I first started, there was some major pushback from everybody, from union personnel to everything else. Now it's slowly, now that Florida's gone that route to where medical cannabis is readily available, and the fact that the hemp bill went in. And this is the biggest reason why I'm so passionate about this. It is basically our testing. When they test for the THC, they're only testing for an inactive, inert metabolite that doesn't say you're impaired, doesn't say you're high, doesn't say anything else. But what a lot of people need to understand, especially those who are getting their firefighters tested and they're looking for that THC, just understand that right now, federally legal low THC 0.3% is not on the banned substance list. So you're testing for something that's beneficial to your people, that will not get you sued. There is no liability of them being impaired. It will help your firefighters, lower your healthcare costs, and will probably save a firefighter's life down in the future. So remember that if you're still testing just a normal THC and not going to the fact about you're trying to figure out, what's going on, you might be testing for something that's saving somebody's life. And that person is saving other people's life. So that's what I'm passionate about. I'm trying to make everybody understand that, trying to make the cities understand that. And I understand, trust me, I understand where they're coming with the liabilities and everything else.
Sure.
But you're testing for a substance that's not, our drug test tests for illegal substances. This is no longer an illegal substance when done right at the proper amounts.
Yeah, 100%. So, the analog there is, what do you do with a benzo? What do you do with an amphetamine? It's a fit for duty test. If you overdid your ADHD medicine and you're scratching and freaking out, then there's a fit for duty test for that. If you have trouble with a benzo, or you're having trouble with alcohol or something, there's a fit for duty test. So that really is the definitive. And so, that's all, there's very plain legal definitions and procedural, structures there to go through. And that is the answer to this. So
Right.
the right thing to do, not only the just and correct and altruistic thing to do, not on the individual level, corporate level as a department, municipal level in their leadership. It is the right thing, the good and intrinsically correct, honorable thing to do, integrity oriented thing to allow us to have access, especially under these acute circumstances, and work with us. Please work with us, and let's talk with the Fed and figure out why, if there is a benefit to the members, there's a benefit to the city, if there's a benefit to Florida League of Cities, why wouldn't we all pursue it collectively?
Exactly.
We can do it. We can do it. And the only reason not to do it is because of public optics, and we need to get over that.
100%. And that the public audience, that'll be done with more and more education, which hopefully like shows like
That's
this
right.
will actually do. Matt, I appreciate you coming on my show. It's been fabulous. If anybody, I don't think we talked, you're not on social media or anything else, but if anybody ever wanted to talk more to you, if you want more people to talk to you, or if you don't, why don't you let them know where they can reach out to you?
I'm unplugged right now.
Or just say, you know what, I'm in the woods. There's no connection in the woods.
I'll do it this way. If your listeners appreciate any content, I'm happy to talk again. But just bug Gary about it and hit him up. Put it in the comments or email. And if they're rattling your cage about it, I'm happy to come on and talk about any of my own personal experiences, what life has looked like on the other side of retirement. We moved to California, so if you can connect the dots there, so.
Perfect.
It's a different life. Yeah. Appreciate you, Gary.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you heard him. So if you guys want to reach out to Matt, whatever, just leave some message in the comments, reach out to me. I'll screen all the calls for Matt and then I'll get in touch with him and then we'll see how we can go from there.
I'm going to have to have you a beer for that one.
Matt, man, thank you very much. I appreciate everything. You have yourself a great day.
Pleasure and an honor, Gary. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.
Good Dudes Grow 2.0. Thank you for tuning in. If you're still listening to this, that means you gained something out of this episode. So make sure you share it with a friend, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode of the Good Dudes Grow 2.0.